You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
And today's Friday review, I'm going to be sharing 3 things that I'll be bringing to Maine this weekend. My family and I are taking off for the weekend. We're going to be going to Maine, enjoying hopefully some nice weather up there. So I'm looking forward to sharing just a few things that I'll be taking on my trip. So the first is I find it to be a very interesting book that shows that natural medicine has just as much research behind it, if not more, than today's conventional medicine. Now, we're all caught up with the idea like, oh, is it science-based? Is it science-based? Is it science-based? It's like every time I post something, an article, like, is this science-based? And I'm like, how is it not science-based? Like, think about it. First of all, we're talking about common sense. So when we're talking about, I did one on dry brushing for the lymphatic system. So we're talking about how you actually move your lymph system, like literally through jumping like a rebounder or through dry skin brushing or through massage. Things that have been proven for the last almost 10,000 years in Ayurvedic medicine, and also a simple research or simple Google on Google Scholar or PubMed would show you things like the Vater technique, and it would show you things on manual lymph drainage and all those things. But it's funny because if you come from any perspective that isn't a prescription drug, someone's like, is this proven by science? And you're like, well, what science are we talking about? First of all, yes, it's proven by conventional medicine science, but it's also proven from a standpoint of, hey, this is how the human body works. Like your knee flexes and extends, it bends forward and backwards. It's not meant to rotate. Some of it is just very straightforward. But then, of course, we do need some really good hard science. And that's why there are books called the Physician's Desk Reference. So when you're looking at, let's look up the different types of pharmaceuticals that people are taking. Every doctor has a Physician's Desk Reference, a PDR, on their desk. And so basically saying, okay, this drug interacts with this drug. This is going to be highly effective for this, whatever it might be. But also, they do the same exact thing for natural medicine. A lot of people don't know that. Well, there's a couple books called PDR for non-prescription drugs. There's something called the PDR for herbal medicines, which is really great. So that's the one I'm actually going to be re-reviewing to Maine. So again, I've read quite a few books, and a lot of times I like to say is, okay, these are books that I'm going to be reviewing over the next month, and I like to, on the weekends, I do typically read a new book as well. I like to also do book reviews. And so the PDR for herbal medicines, now, if you're not into health or you're not a health practitioner, those types of things, that's totally fine. This book might not be the book for you, but it just shows study after study of all these herbs and how they actually work with the body, what they're effective for. And I just want you to know that when you are working with a functional medicine practitioner or really a naturopathic doctor or herbalist or something like that, that there's real truth and there's real power behind herbs. Herbs are the original medicine. They were put on earth, literally, I believe, for medicine, because that's what they do. It's plant medicine. That's what it is. And it's also what's been used from the beginning of time. Before pharmaceutical drugs were around, it was always about herbs. That's what it was about. Yes, vitamins, minerals, all those things are important, but herbs are also medicine themselves. And that can be mushrooms, and it can be anything from ashwagandha and rhodiola and maca. And there's just so many, right? So many great ones that have been proven also by science. But you want to keep in mind too, that with these herbal medicines, it's also nice to know why you should be taking them. Don't just take them for no reason at all. Take them because you need them for specific reasons. And I think that's really, really important. But essentially, I just wanted to get across to you that there's science to all different types of medicine. The conventional medicine, which has only been around for a couple hundred years at most, they didn't corner the market on science. And also keep in mind that science is very young. It's still very, very young. I can point back to hundreds of studies we thought were once safe. Smoking was once thought safe. All these things were once thought safe and promoted by doctors of the day. Keep in mind that you have to use common sense. You also have to use things that have been proven for thousands of years to work. And here's the biggest thing. Here's the biggest kicker, as I like to say. More than half of all pharmaceutical drugs are patented herbs, meaning they're using extracts from herbs as a patent. Think of statins. Think of these types of drugs are extracts basically of plants. When I was in India studying on all of my different internships, when I was in the Himalayas, there was every different pharmaceutical company that you could think of was there as well, talking with the local Ayurvedic medicine doctors, learning from natural medicine of how these herbs work in the body to then hope to patent these specific extracts to be then sold as drugs. So please do keep in mind, don't let anyone ever tell you that there's no science behind natural medicine. People don't often believe in it. I don't understand why. It's a very recent thing, meaning the last couple of hundred years, because a couple hundred years ago, you would have been using herbs and you would have been using really natural health-based medical treatments to get well, all right? Now, and again, I'm not against conventional medicine. Don't ever think that I am. I always say that if you're having a heart attack, please don't call me. Call me before the heart attack. Call me after the heart attack. But while you're having it, please go to the emergency room and see an emergency medicine doctor. All right, so moving on, the next item that I'm going to be bringing is for exercise. So when I do travel to Maine, which I love to go to during the summer and especially the fall, it's so beautiful during the fall and there's less people up there. Really, really amazing place. If you ever get a chance to visit, I'm right around the Biddeford area, right outside of Kennebunkport, right near kind of, what else is there, Alfred and a few other cities. It's just an amazing, amazing place. And I only do body weight workouts when I go up there. So it's really, well, it's body weight, but just very small piece of equipment. And I'm bringing with me a new kettlebell that I just purchased. Now, it's a special kettlebell. It's made by the company On It, and it's actually in the form of a Cyclops. Like literally the kettlebell, the big ball of the kettlebell has the head of a Cyclops. And they have this whole line of kettlebells called the primates. So they have these primate bells like great apes and the chimp and all these things. And again, it's just like the heads of a chimp that you're swinging with a handle. And then they have other lines like the Legends Bell, which is the one I got with the Cyclops, and it's 20 kilograms, which is 44 pounds. And this is a great kettlebell for me because I can do one-arm swings with it. I can do, shoulder presses. I can do all this type of great stuff with this kettlebell, and it's just fun. Like you might say, okay, well, why'd you get one in the shape of a Cyclops? Well, keep in mind, I've been really exercising for 20 years now, and when I do just like fun things like this, just, literally there's no need for it, but it's fun. And so I just bought a Cyclops looking kettlebell, and I could bring it, and I'm just like more apt to use it because it's a new toy. Really, that's really all it is, right? It's a toy for me to do my exercise, for me to have a little fun with it, swing with it, maybe take some photos, put them on Instagram. And again, so the reason I mention that is just because, one, I can get a whole workout in with just a kettlebell, which is great. I also use my assisted chin-up bar, and I'll use probably just my own body weight for dips and maybe a band. But then I have this kettlebell, and the kettlebell, again, I can do swings, I can do all sorts of great things with it, and it's fun. That's the biggest thing, is like you should allow yourself to have some fun when you exercise. And sometimes you just need a little motivational boost. And so I bought this just as like a little fun gift to myself, and I know I could use this and bring it with me, and easy to travel with, right? Because it only takes up like 6 inches by 6 inches. So fun little thing. If you want to see more of these kettlebells, they're by On It Academy, and they sell all sorts of different kettlebells in different primate and legend-based shapes. So really fun stuff. And the next one is something that I'm starting to get into. I've wanted to get into it. I got into it a little bit last year. Something that I think that I could really get into, and that's gardening. So you might say, you garden? Well, it's because of this. It's because I've just gotten so much more into where my food comes from. And it's pretty amazing when you think about it. If you grow this food from a seed or maybe even a starter plant into this big, like lush head of lettuce, like Bib lettuce or something like that, and you're growing carrots and you're growing celery and you're growing basil and all these nice things, it's amazing to literally pick it out of your garden and then bring it right into your house and eat that for dinner. Like I think it's fantastic and amazing. And it's also, I like being self-reliant. I like just knowing that I can make my own food and just cook my own food, which obviously when you're gardening, it's not that hard to cook your own food, right? Because you can like literally take it out of the ground and start eating it. But I bought these planters that are set up about 3 feet off the ground. And so it makes it easier to expose your vegetables or so to sunlight, but also it keeps the little critters away, meaning that it keeps like, let's say you're doing it in an urban neighborhood or, somewhere around where there's like raccoons and there's dogs. You don't want them, relieving themselves on all of your plants, in your garden. And also you don't want them being eaten by rabbits and other things like that. So what I do is I have these nice little planters. They're set up off of the ground, very difficult for anything to get at them. And I think the other great thing about it as well is that it takes up a very small footprint. So I think they're like maybe 3.5 feet long by 2 feet wide. And you can just get a couple of those. If you're in the city like I am in Boston, you could put them right on we have a community roof deck. It's just a bunch of condos and a brownstone. And then you could just grow your own vegetables for 6 months of the year or so right up on that, roof deck, or just on I have neighbors that do it on a fire escape, just in small little planters right outside of their place. And then the thing is, if I were to do it some other place, like in Maine or a place like that, then I can have a bunch of planters and I can have just fresh vegetables and other things growing, like tomatoes or whatever it might be, heirloom tomatoes, growing right there. And then I'm more self-sufficient, self-sustainable. But it's also fun. Like I have 2-year-old and 4-year-old now, and I can teach my 2 girls how to grow their own food. And so I think it's really nice, one, to be more connected with the food that you're eating, and you start to have a greater appreciation for it. And I also think just from a sustainability standpoint, and also a standpoint where you can understand that you don't need to use pesticides on your own food, and you don't need to use waxes or chemicals, and that you can pick it when it's ripe. I mean, all of those things are just so great for your body. But I also think, and here's the biggest thing, I believe that if you just get into gardening just a little bit, again, just cook a few different things, you're going to be more apt to want to eat healthier because you're going to eat the things that you grew in your own garden. So hopefully that motivates you. Again, it took me a lot of years to finally get put the onus on myself to actually get out and do this. But maybe it influences you. Maybe you'll start it yourself. You'll just start with a couple pots in your kitchen, maybe put them right outside and start to grow some herbs at least. Maybe a little bit of basil. You can make a great pesto sauce or something like that, which we love to do in my family. And it's just a greater way of starting you to not only get healthier, eat healthier, but also understand that it's just far more sustainable when you eat locally, when you grow your own food, and you know where it comes from. And again, then you'll be able to teach that to your own family, and you'll be able to hopefully teach it then to others. And that's how these things grow. This is how we develop really a movement, and how we start to get away from the big companies like Monsanto and all of this pesticides and the Terminator seeds and all of the corruption that's basically taking place. We can vote by taking control of our own food and what we choose to buy and what we choose to put in our own mouths. So hopefully you enjoyed today's show. Let me know if you'd like me to review anything in the future. All you have to do is go to the contact page at StephenCabral.com, or simply go to StephenCabral.com/Ask Cabral. And then today, and just like every day, I always have a show notes page. So if you ever want to get links to the kettlebell that I'm recommending, or the books that I recommend, or the urban gardening planters, or again, they can be used anywhere, those planters, I'll link them up. And I will send you the best places to get those at the best possible price. Thank you once again for another great week on the Cabral Concept. I want to sincerely thank you for your support of this podcast. I couldn't do it without you, and I mean that. I truly do. I also want to make sure you knew that we now have multiple ways for you to find your answers to the most difficult health, wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging questions. You can find podcast-specific topics like thyroid, adrenal, hormones, sleep, digestion, Ayurveda, and many more at StephenCabral.com/podcasts that will then link you to your favorite Apple, Spotify, and other podcast players. Plus, all new podcasts and weekly exclusive video content is being added to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Stephen Cabral. And that's Stephen with a PH. Head on over and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the exclusive content. Lastly, if you've ever found any of my podcasts or books to be helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a review on iTunes or your favorite media player for the podcast. Rating and subscribing to the YouTube and podcast allow me to reach more and more people and help spread my mission of healing throughout the world. Thank you again for being a part of this movement.